Open a wrapped body from ancient Egypt, and you were not looking at a mystery. You were looking at a controlled technology called Egyptian mummification, engineered to dry, seal, and protect a person for the afterlife. The best way to understand it is evidence first. What the embalmers actually did, which substances they used, how bandages and resins behave, and how CT scans and chemical studies confirm the steps without guesswork. Start with the goal. Stop decay by removing wet organs, drying the body with natron, and rebuilding shape with linen, resin, and packing so the person could live again as a whole being. In the most elaborate cases, the whole operation took about 70 days. Time to extract organs, dehydrate tissue, anoint, wrap, and complete funerary ritual under priestly supervision. The first stage in the step-by-step mummification process was purification, washing the body with water and sometimes palm wine to clean and degrease the skin. Then embalmers opened a careful incision on the left flank and removed the lungs, liver, stomach, and intestines, the wettest organs most likely to decay fast. Those organs weren't discarded, they were dried separately and preserved because the person would need them again in the next life. That is the purpose of canopic jars. 4 containers aligned with 4 protective deities, so each organ had a guardian and a place of safekeeping. The mapping is consistent across countless tomb assemblages: Imseti for the liver, Hapi for the lungs, Duamutef for the stomach, and Kebesenuef for the intestines. The heart, by contrast, was usually left inside the body because it was the seat of memory, character, and moral record, a vital identity in funerary belief. Brain treatment varied over time. In many later mummies, the brain was liquefied and withdrawn through the nose with a hooked tool, but in earlier periods it could be left in place, so dawn to think always or never. After evisceration, embalmers packed the body inside and out with natron, naturally occurring salts that pull moisture from tissue, and left it to dry for about 40 days. This is chemistry done without thermometers. Lower water activity, stop bacteria, and halt self-digestion, so skin and muscles stabilize into a dry, leathery state. When the desiccation period ended, embalmers rinsed the cavities, then rebuilt the torso with linen pads, sawdust, resin-treated bundles, and sometimes false eyes or subcutaneous packs to restore form. Anointing came next. Oils, fats, and resins brushed over the skin and into the nose, mouth, and incisions, both to seal pores and to perfume the body as a dignified, ritually pure person. These aren't random smears. Recipes mattered, and modern resin analysis shows consistent choices with antimicrobial punch, water repellents, and aromatic identity. Bandaging then turned anatomy into architecture. Long, narrow linen strips wrapped fingers, toes, limbs, and torso in layers, with resins painted between wraps to glue, waterproof, and stiffen the whole. Fine work at this stage is visible even now. You can read direction changes, herringbone patterns, and reinforced crossings where joints needed extra support. Amulets, small protective objects, went between layers at key points like the throat, heart, and wrists, turning the wrapping into a map of prayers and protections. The face could be covered by a mask or a panel portrait, and the whole was placed in a coffin that echoed a body-esque shape so ritual language could address a person, not a bundle. All of this is embalming, but it's also logistics. Priests, specialist embalmers, linen suppliers, and perfumers working to a schedule with tools and dedicated spaces. Texts and archaeology name those spaces: an open-air pavilion for washing, an interior workshop for evisceration and drying, and storage for ingredients labeled by purpose. When we say mummification tools, think knives for the flank incision, hooks and spoons for brain extraction and cavity cleaning, scoops and funnels for packing, and ladles and brushes for balms. The timeline isn't rigid across 3,000 years. In the Old Kingdom, natural desiccation and early artificial methods sat side by side, and results are uneven. By the New Kingdom and late period, procedures standardize. more reliable dehydration, systematic bandaging, consistent canopic sets, and clearer ritual choreography around the corpse. Tomb inscriptions and coffin texts amplify that choreography with spells and names that bind the person to their equipment, so ritual and chemistry are two halves of one process. The modern revolution is that we can test all of this. CT scans of mummies show internal packing, organ bundles, and the path of excerebration without unwrapping a single bandage. They reveal resinated plugs at the nose, dense amulet clusters at the chest, and linen pads restoring cheeks and limbs so the deceased looked whole. CT also proves variability. Some mummies show intact brains or partial brain treatment, reminding us that how Egyptians mummified bodies is a moving target across dynasties and budgets. Chemical analyses do for balms what CT did for anatomy. They fingerprint oils, beeswax, plant resins, bitumen, and tree exudates, and they link recipes to body parts. Recent residue work from a Saqqara embalming workshop shows labeled jars for the head, to wash, for the liver, each with different mixes tuned to function. Those recipes include conifer resins, Pistacia products, and exotic aromatics like elemi or dammar, implying trade routes that ran far beyond the Nile Valley. Even earlier, residues in 18th dynasty Canopic jars from a noblewoman revealed complex balms of beeswax, plant oil, bitumen, pinnace resin, and pistacia or dammar, proving that resin and linen analysis can reach deep into the past. When you line up this chemistry with wrapping patterns, you see a design logic. Resins stiffen and seal, oils plasticize and perfume, waxes waterproof and lock fibers, and bitumen darkens, strengthens, and helps amulets stick between layers. This is why linen matters. Mummy bandages are more than cloth. They're a structural composite, once resonated, flexible when warm, rigid when set. Priests weren't only technicians, they were narrators, speaking rites as each stage turned a body into an equipped, protected person ready for judgment. Canopic jars were positioned near or within the coffin equipment, so the person's parts stayed close, physically preserved, ritually guarded, and symbolically retrievable. Coffin decoration then built a portable world of deities, stars, and spells, so the deceased could navigate safely. If you're mapping a step-by-step mummification process for video, anchor it to this sequence. Wash, open, remove, dry, rebuild, anoint, wrap, equip, encase, and perform rites. Then add 2 evidence layers modern viewers appreciate. CT scans of mummies that show what is inside, and residue reports that translate ancient labels into actual ingredients. It's also worth clearing myths. Embalmers didn't always pull the brain. Practice changes by period, and CT proves it. They didn't throw organs away, they preserved them, and sometimes, in later eras, returned them to the body in packets when canopic use declined. Natron wasn't mystical powder. It was practical salt chemistry that any desert culture could recognize as a dryer. Resin wasn't a single substance. It was a toolkit with specific targets: head care, cavity deodorizing, bandage preparation, chosen for antimicrobial and sealing properties. And the famous hook through the nose wasn't gore for its own sake. It was the least damaging route to the cranial cavity when skull integrity and facial appearance mattered. Put together, these details show ancient embalming techniques Egypt refined over centuries into a repeatable craft supported by supply chains and taught in specialized places. If you watch closely in museum displays, you'll often see the left side incision, resin sheen on linen, and the 4 canopic deities repeating from piece to piece, small consistencies that make the system visible. For Old Kingdom to New Kingdom comparisons, focus on reliability. Later mummies generally show more thorough drying, more complex balms, and more standardized wrapping forms. For tool talk, link metal quality and blade shapes to cleaner incisions and faster work, especially as iron enters the picture late. For funerary ritual, look for priestly roles named in texts and the presence of opening of the mouth instruments that frame the final transformation. For tomb inscriptions, treat them as instructions and identity cards, names, titles, and promises that tie a preserved body to a preserved social life. For canopic jars' purpose, show them in action, organ packets dried with natron, wrapped, sometimes anointed, and installed in jars or later in carved niches within the coffin set. For resin analysis, drop in a simple table or call-outs, beeswax for sealing, conifer resin for antimicrobial protection, Pistacia for fragrance and film strength, bitumen for toughness, so viewers grasp why each ingredient appears. For CT scans of mummies, animate cross-sections of head, chest, and pelvis to reveal plugs, wrappings, and amulet positions without disturbing a fiber. For mummy wrapping methods, diagram finger-by-finger bandaging and limb spirals, then show how resin turns fabric into armor that still flexes at elbows and knees. For mummification tools, stage a clean, labeled kit: knife, hook, spoon, packing probes, ladle, brush, so audiences see craft rather than horror. For the mummification timeline, Egypt, reserve a call-out. 70 days total, 40 days drying, remainder for anointing, packing, bandaging, and rites, and note that cheaper burials compressed steps. Finally, remember why any of this mattered: to make the person whole, durable, recognizable, and ritually effective in a universe where body, name, and heart had to agree. If this calm walkthrough helped, the follow-up will compare Old Kingdom and New Kingdom case studies using CT imagery and balm chemistry, so the technique turns into a toolkit you can reuse across sites and periods. Subscribe to continue the evidence-first tour.